Street Fighter 6 has concluded its second year of competition, and with big balance changes and new characters added to the roster, it has seen quite the shakeup from the big 3 meta of Season 1. And oh boy, did these DLC characters make quite the impact. So let's take a look at how DLC took over the meta, which characters from Season 1 stayed relevant, who got impacted by buffs and nerfs the hardest, and potentially peaking into a potent omen for Season 3. Similar to my Year 1 breakdown of Street Fighter 6, we'll be using Wikipedia tournament tiers to compile results. Tier 3 tournaments track only top 8 placements, Tier 2 is top 16, Tier 1 is top 32, and lastly Tier 1 with over 1,000 entrants will track the full top 64 of character results. Also, this is a predominantly offline dataset, with the only online brackets being featured in this dataset being any of the World Warrior tournaments due to their significance. Alright, let's get into it. Starting with the DLC-ening. Now, the DLC-ening is an attack on two fronts. The east side of the invasion actually comes from the DLC that have already been in the game since Season 1. The majority of the Season 1 DLC did not make much of an impact during the release season, outside of Rashid, due to either a lack of time to establish themselves or just not being strong enough. But in Season 2, these characters, well, except Aki, become true menaces. Rashid had the least to gain from the wins he was already blowing, but he broke into the top 10 this year in total results. His movement remained among the slipperiest amongst the cast, with wall jumps, whirlwinds, and air control that could overwhelm even the most grounded matchups. What really pushed him forward though was how well he adapted to the drive system. His drive rush pressure was relentless, and his frame traps plus ridiculous level 2 super forced mistakes out of anyone trying to challenge his tempo. In a season defined by corner dominance and momentum, Rashid was a storm you just could not outrun. And then there was Ed, who also exploded in results once players found their footing with the boxer, jumping all the way to top 5 in total results for the second year of competition. Even though his ability to gain meter back while comboing off of his level 2 was reduced, it made him no less of a threat. His Psycho Flicker pressure gave him plus frames from a safe distance, and his 5 medium punch and drive rush 5 medium kick became some of the most oppressive tools in mid-range. Add on corner carry from simple confirms, plus good knockdowns, and Ed thrived as a character who could smother opponents with complete control over the neutral. But out of any character from the first DLC season, Akuma's impact cannot be topped. He only had 2 weeks during Year 1, but the omen of his reign was already laid out. He rose all the way up to the second most results in the game, being a jack of all trades with excellent mobility, strong zoning, and close range pressure. Once he got in on his opponents is where he truly shined. His demon flip pressure, Kara throw game, and plus Umbrock air fireballs turned every knockdown into a guessing game with incredibly potent damage output. Akuma may have the lowest health in the game, but he doesn't need to survive long when he could just delete you first, and his results definitely showcase that. But on the west side of the invasion was Season 2, and to be frank, it was mainly a one-man army. You see, Akuma had the second most results, but was still pretty close to number 3 and 4 for the season Cammy and Ken. Number 1 though was in a league above them all. M. Bison was easily in a tier of his own when it came to tournament presence. His corner carry, plus frames, and constant threat of Psycho Mines made every interaction feel dangerous. Scissor Kicks just played neutral for him. His damage was straight up absurd. EX Psycho Crusher blew past everything. He didn't just win neutral, this fucker could just bypass it. And once he got momentum, he forced you to guess until the round was over, and you likely were going to guess wrong. There were 2 other characters that came out during Street Fighter 6's second year, and were also the series' first guest characters. Both from Fatal Fury came Terry and Mai. Terry didn't have much of an impact, landing in the bottom 3 of tournament results for the time frame he had. Mai, on the other hand, had quite an interesting showing. She only had 4 months to work with, ending up barely surpassing Terry in the full year dataset. But when you look into this data on a month-to-month basis, Mai was completely taking over the meta by the end of the season. She had the most results in May between big events such as Evo Japan and Combo Breaker, even winning the latter event. While her presence in Season 2 was limited, I have no doubt she will be an absolute menace in Season 3. With DLC taking up more and more prevalent tournament results, there are going to be base game characters left behind. So let's take a look at those who ended up falling off in relevancy under the heavy foot of DLC. Hey, if you liked the video so far, maybe consider subscribing. I'm so close to 10K. I really want to hit that mark, and it'd mean a lot to me if you did. All right, back onto the video. The previous meta was dominated by 3 characters: Luke, JP, and Ken. Luke and JP took a bit of a hit, dropping out of the top 5 after some nerfs toned them down, but were still quite relevant and strong characters in the game. Ken, on the other hand, was actually still pretty good. He lands at number 4 for the season, is still one of the dominant forces in the meta. The rest of the base cast are in an interesting spot. A majority of them trended downward this season, mainly due to DLC taking up the top slots. So we're mainly going to focus on 2 characters that felt this drop off the hardest. First off is DJ. Now, to say DJ fell off would be a bit disingenuous. It's more so falling from number 4 in the entire game to just outside of the top 10 at number 11. He saw some nerfs to his light kick, EX Sabat, and overall damage scaling. Add-on players getting better at checking drive rushes and getting used to his fake pressure, and DJ setlist did not receive any encore. But the character that actually fell off was Marisa, dropping from number 8 in year 1 all the way to worst character in the game. Not last place, let's go Jamie Mays, let's go! She got hit by nerfs that essentially kneecapped her in surviving this meta, mainly to her damage on common confirms and startup plus armor on her armored moves. Add on the rise of characters with fast, safe pressure such as Ed, Cammy, and Ken, who made it hard for her to even get a turn, plus zoners like JP and Guile keeping her at a distance she struggles to close, plus relying too hard on needing to read her opponents to win, and she was just left to the lions this season as usually agreed upon as the worst in the game. There were some base game characters that did see some overall improvement though. As mentioned earlier, Cammy became the best base character in the game, jumping from 6th up to 3rd in tournament results over Ken and just behind Akuma, finding pilots of various strong players from across the globe. And then the other was Zangief, who was on a roller coaster of buffs and nerfs this season, but found his own spot in the meta, with players such as Itabashi Zangief, Zangief Bolado, and Mena RD finding great success with the character, but fell short of cracking into the top 10, ending up at 12th. When we take a look at the whole picture, you can see the clear established hierarchy of this season, and Bison stood tall at number 1, with Akuma, Cammy, and Ken being the clear next best characters right behind him. Then, there is a large gap dividing them and the rest of the top 10, with Ed, JP, Luke, Guile, Rashid, and Jury filling out the rest. Impressively, every character is still managing to crack over 1% results, though Marisa is just barely hanging on at the bottom. Let's quickly take a look at the results of the big 3 regions of the game. Shockingly, M. Bison was only the number 1 character in one region, which was Asia. He actually wasn't this overwhelming force across the entire scene. North America's big DLC problem was actually Akuma, and Europe didn't actually have any real big DLC problem, with Cammy being a truly dominant force in the scene, and even Ken still above both Akuma and Bison. But when you look at all the other smaller regions, M. Bison was essentially one of the biggest forces around the entire globe, contributing to why he was the overall number 1 character for this time period. So that's enough of the quantitative results. What about the qualitative? Out of every tournament in this data set, all but one character has won a tournament, with Marisa being the only one not to. Cammy and Ken both lead the pack with most tournament wins, and interestingly enough, M. Bison does not even crack the top 5. This was a curious thing about him in the meta. His presence was everywhere in the bracket, but Bison did not really win a ton of actual tournaments in comparison to the other characters in the top 10. But is that true for major results? Well, about half the cast was able to successfully take home a gold medal at one. Ken had the most major victories, with Angry Bird winning the mix-up, Emperor winning Kings of the World, and Tokido winning both the CPT Japan Super Premier and Asian Champions League. Behind Ken were 3 characters to claim 2 major wins, Cammy winning CEO and Evo under Punk, Rashid taking DreamHack Summer and Red Bull Kumite under Big Bird, and the last of all characters being Zangief, with Mena RD winning Cream City Convergence and Itabashi Zangief taking East Coast Throwdown. And lastly was 8 different characters all finding at least 1 major win this past year. Luke won Blink Respawn under Noah the Prodigy, Ed won the Esports World Cup Last Chance Qualifier under Lashar. As mentioned earlier, My One Combo Breaker also under Lashar. Akuma only had 1 major win despite his overall success, winning CPT Singapore Super Premier under Shuto. JP won the $1 million prize pool of Capcom Cup under Kakaru. Blanca won EVO Japan under Mena RD. And lastly, once again, shockingly only with 1 major win, despite having the most tournament placements in the season, was M. Bison, winning the Esports World Cup in 2024 under Xiaohai. So despite everything, despite Akuma and M. Bison being at the top of the ranks, they didn't really dominate in the way of actually winning tournaments, but their overall presence is still notable. Characters received a bunch of changes with the second year edition that came out on June 5th with the launch of the Switch 2, and a bunch of characters of course got changes. We'll see how the meta shapes out, though Mai's still definitely looking like the best character at the time of this video coming out. With more DLC coming on the way like Sagat and the rest of Season 3, it's curious to see how Capcom will bounce around them as DLC creeps more and more in terms of the representation in the overall roster. Scoring right now is going to be the players who gave the most tournament results for each character for the season as I go through this outro. Thanks for watching. As mentioned earlier, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments if you're interested in more Street Fighter 6 videos that aren't just about the meta. I really adore this game. It's one of like the 3 that I keep up the most with esports, right next to Smash and Rivals, and of course it's a lot of fun to play, even if I'm really bad at it. Also, I tend to forget to mention, but I do have a Patreon where all of this is accessible for any Patreon that pledges $1. If you like seeing my videos, if you want to support me in what I do, that is the easiest way to do so, and I always appreciate those who do. And I'll see you all next time with another video. Peace.